Welcome, Jose Ruiz here, licensed fertility acupuncturist with Family Acupuncture Nerves of Reading. Today I'd like to talk to you about doing a basal temperature chart. Now, for most of you who don't know what that is, a basal temperature chart is basically taking your resting temp every day to get a picture of what your menstrual cycle looks like. So essentially what we're doing is it requires that you get generally at least 3 hours of sleep. If you have insomnia or you're not getting adequate rest, you may notice erratic charts when you're doing a basal temperature chart. So typically you need a digital thermometer. You're putting it in your mouth right before you get out of bed. So you don't want to be getting up and going to the bathroom and then taking your temperature. It's no longer a basal temperature chart when you're doing it that way. So first thing, right before you get out of bed, jot down your temperature, and what you'll be doing is measuring your basal temperature chart. Now, the basal body temperature chart should have a characteristic look to it. Generally, if you have a 28-day cycle, it should look something like this. Oh, that should be a 5. So your first half of your cycle is called the follicular phase. The second half of your cycle after ovulation is called the luteal phase. Now, the follicular phase in general should be around mid-97 range, okay? And you'll notice it'll fluctuate up and down within that mid-97 range. As you get closer to ovulating, you may notice that your temperature drops down a few tenths of a degree. And it's doing that because estrogen is peaking. So as the follicle is getting close to ovulation, it's releasing a significant amount of estrogen. Estrogen then feeds back on the brain, and the brain releases luteinizing hormone, or LH. LH then triggers that last phase of development of the egg and ovulation. After ovulation, you'll notice that your temperature will rise, and that rise is anywhere from 0.4 to 0.6 of a degree. It can also be up to 1 degree. The luteal phase should maintain that elevation until you either get your period, in which case it should come down. Generally, it'll come down before your period, so you'll know if it does come down that it's very likely that you're going to get your period. Or it may stay elevated, in which case you'll notice about 14 days past ovulation, if you see another rise, generally about 0.2 of a degree rise, that is indicative of a pregnancy curve. Okay, so this is what we're looking for during a basal body temperature chart. Now, where it can be helpful is when it doesn't look like that, it can let us know where the problems are. For instance, a lot of women who are older, many times their cycles will change, in which case a lot of times you may see instead of ovulating around day 14, they may ovulate around day 9. And their chart will kind of look like this, where they'll see rises, and generally it'll drop down to about day 25 in that case. Cases like this, the follicular phase is too short. Okay, so our goal is to really nourish those eggs, nourish the follicles, so that we can extend the time of development closer to day 14. Okay, it may also look a little bit different. You may have a cycle where you're ovulating, say, around day 22, okay, and having a 28-day cycle. If you're ovulating a lot later than day 14, it's going to be much more difficult to get pregnant because the uterine lining, there's a specific window of time when it's receptive to implantation. And if you conceive after that window, it's going to be very difficult for implantation to take place. The other thing is if your luteal phase, the second half of your cycle, is very short, that's also going to be suboptimal with regards to having that uterine lining maintain all the characteristics that it needs for implantation to take place. So what we want to do is shift it closer to day 14 so that we're ovulating within that phase, and that will significantly impact the receptivity of that uterine lining. Some of the other things that we may see is you may be ovulating around day 14, but you may see these big dips in your basal temp. Many times that's indicative that progesterone, which is dominant hormone during the luteal phase, is deficient. Okay, so if I'm seeing things like that, I'm thinking, progesterone is deficient. Again, we're still supporting on this side, we're really supporting the first half of development to support the corpus luteum, okay, so it can maintain progesterone. So here are some of the examples of some of the things I'm looking for. Another thing that's actually very common that I wanted to mention is where your temperatures are. So if your follicular phase temps are significantly below 97.5, like let's say I have a bunch of patients their temps are in the 96 range, that is too low, and many times that's indicative of hypothyroidism. That could be one of the things. Or what if your follicular phase is above 98? That's too high. So many times you may have hyperthyroid issues. So we're looking for different patterns. These different patterns will let us know where the problems are within your menstrual cycle, and they will help us with regards to creating a treatment plan so that we can address those issues. Thanks for stopping by. I look forward to seeing you again. Jose Ruiz, Family Acupuncture and Herbs of Reading. Give us a call.